Hello and welcome. Today, I have decided to interview someone who we call a sweet freedom hero, Shiro, if you want to say,
Mm.
and a champion of the Sweet Freedom program, but someone who just epitomizes what we believe is required to make things work in Sweet Freedom. So she's just sets our heart aglow, and we do have others in the group, but there's a few things that Christina Hennig brings to the experience of Sweet Freedom that I just felt would help a lot of people. So, Christina, I just want to say welcome and thank you for agreeing to this. I really appreciate you taking your time today with us.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy and honored to be here. And if my story and my experience can ease other people's struggle in some way, um, that's really important to me. So,
Great. Well, why don't we get started by you telling your story, like how,
sure.
where you were, and how you came to Sweet Freedom, and just your story as you see it and experience it.
Sure. Um, so my struggle with food and weight really has been my whole life. Um, I was never well. I was going to say I was never small. When I look back at my pictures when I was overweight, as a teenager and young adult, I think, wow, if I could get there again, that'd be great. But all my life, I was bigger than was considered normal. Um, I remember the first time I was bullied for being fat as a child outside of, in the schoolyard, and that was grade 2. So it has been my lifelong companion. You know, my first diet was when I was 15, and that was like pre-internet, pre-diet books, pre lots of stuff. I must have read in a magazine or something about uh, instead of having 2 pieces of toast with your egg in the morning, have 1 piece, and instead of having lots of potatoes, have less potatoes. And so I did that, and I lost weight and felt better and stopped following that and gained weight back. um, I think my experience is different than many people's in that the approaches I used for losing weight were not just about losing weight. It was also about getting healthier and trying to feel better physically and emotionally. So I never really did calorie restricting things. I did, in my early 20s, I read the book Sugar Blues by, I think, Adele Davis. And that was my first time that I quit sugar and lost tons of weight and lasted for 2 years. That's really been my longest stretch without sugar. But, it slowly started to sneak in. And all of the things I've tried since that time have all been about, reducing the carbs in whatever way. I did natural hygiene food combining. I did the zone. I did the carbohydrate addicts diet. Did you ever hear about that one?
No.
Oh, that is so crazy. It's like your meals through the day, you don't eat any carbs, and then you have a window of time at night from like 6 till 8 or something. You can gorge, and then the next day start again. I mean, how insane is that? Anyway,
It's called addicts.
yeah, exactly. um, at one point, I really, got it was an addiction, and I went to Overeaters Anonymous, which unfortunately was very confusing for me, um, in that people define their abstinence in very individual ways, and it was kind of crazy to me how some people defined it. So I just stumbled along, and I pretty much gave up. I had done um, tons of emotional and psychotherapeutic work all my life. I had my own practice as a psychotherapist for a long time. And so I had done the emotional piece. I understood it. I had read a lot. But I still didn't seem to be able to crack the nut, you know? So, by the time that I found Sweet Freedom, I was desperate, but I had pretty much given up. Really, I had pretty much given up. So, not a fun story.
It's not a fun story, but I think it's many people's story, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us, what did your relationship with food and sugar look like? How do you describe it?
Yeah. Well, it was pretty crazy. I mean, I could consume amounts that, when you tell a sort of person who doesn't have a problem with food, they just kind of shake their heads and they don't get it. I mean, I could have like a whole bag of cookies and sugary tea for breakfast. I could buy a red velvet cake and eat it myself in one sitting. I could eat a whole thing of ice cream. I could, have the bag of chips and then the ice cream and then the cake all in one evening. Like it just. I mean, literally, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. There's obviously something wrong because it isn't the normal natural way to eat. It just isn't. I mean, in nature, animals don't gorge. Well, maybe they gorge, but it's not on carbohydrates. And so, yeah, I mean, I just like when looking back on it, it just really is kind of mind blowing to me that a human can really do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was out of control. And then um like the self-hate, right? The self-hate is just so toxic.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing, which is important, is that I even got the gastric band. I was going to say installed. 8 years ago, maybe.
Right.
Not covered by insurance. I'm in Canada, so $16,000 out of my own pocket.
Wow.
Huge amount of money, but I was desperate. I was starting to have high blood pressure and pre-diabetes, and I'm on my own. I don't have anybody who would take care of me if I get really sick. So I thought, well, hopefully this will help, right? And I did great with it. I lost tons of weight the first 6 months, but the ban restricts healthy food. The ban does not restrict ice cream and cookies and chips and chocolate, which they tell you. But when you're ready to do that procedure, part of you knows you still have that addict in you, but you don't want to believe it anymore. You want to believe this is going to be the thing that'll fix you, right? So I don't regret doing it, because I think it helped me to prevent my health problems getting really, really bad. But it certainly is not the answer for me. And I certainly gained back most of the weight that I lost with it. So, and it creates kind of a weird mentality because you're very restricted in terms of the healthy food you can eat. And if you push it, literally, it just comes back up. So if you want to eat something that you love, it becomes almost like a bulimia in a way. It's like eat until you can't anymore, and then it comes back up, and then you eat some more, and it comes back up. Like it can get really wonky.
Yeah. Mind
So
messing.
yeah. So
Wow. It's interesting because you've been on the program since January. It's now going into
right.
October. This is the third Sweet Freedom that you're participating in.
Hmm.
And I thought I knew your story, but having this conversation, and you don't know everyone's story completely. I mean,
Yeah.
this is I've already had to fight back tears a couple times when we've been speaking. Yeah. So you did have certain successes along the way, right?
Hmm.
And I think why do you think that you had those successes, and why do you think that eventually they were no longer the success, that they initially were?
Right. Um, well, I think all of them in different ways really addressed the sugar and the carb issue. the refined sugar and refined flour issues. It restricted those or eliminated those. And so as long as I was able to adhere to that, then I would lose weight and keep the weight off. But they were all kind of one pronged. It was like, these are acceptable foods, these are not. And I remember I was seeing a naturopath, and I was, diagnosed with candida, and I was on the candida diet, which is really restrictive. And I mean, I started to feel better and I was losing weight. But I remember it was a very seminal moment. I just thought, if I have to do this for the rest of my life, I don't want to. I won't. I don't. I will not. So if you only look at restricting foods, you're missing so much of what makes us human. I mean, food is hugely psychological. Sugar is everywhere. And, in some ways it might be easier to be an alcoholic because you can totally avoid alcohol. You can't avoid food. And so if you're alone and isolated, which each time I was successful, I was, people didn't understand what I was doing. There was nobody who if I talked to about it, got it. And I felt estranged from society and from the world, So those are all elements that were missing from those programs. Yeah, I knew what to eat, but how do I eat, when I go to a function with friends or family, so that I don't just feel disconnected, How do I deal with, the emotions of what things I don't want to feel. And I also think now at this point in time, I really think there is something which I've started to call the sugar brain. It's like when we get compulsive, we get obsessive, and we get self-hating and judgmental and cruel to ourselves, we think that's us. But I actually have come to think that that's actually the result of the sugar. The sugar is creating that mental monster. And if we can somehow grab hold of that and understand when we stop sugar, that monster actually starts to quiet down. And there still may be, the emotional stuff, but it's different than that sugar monster that kind of is there just, bullying us. So,
the brain, when we have sugar on it, it's the addicted brain, and it's misfiring, and so it provides this environment where negativity it's ripe for those negative thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah.
It makes it harder. I like to share that when I'm off sugar, when I'm nourished, it's like my factory settings are like grounded, happy, joy. And even if difficult things are coming up, I find it hard to dwell in them because that's kind of my base. Whereas when I have sugar in my brain, everything can go really well in my life, and I'm looking for stuff that's gone wrong. I don't know about you.
Well, I find it's almost like my brain on sugar is almost like I have ADHD, attention deficit disorder. It's like it's everywhere, and not able to focus on anything, and just like, man, it's not fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This is a little bit of a side note for us, but I just actually created a meme last night. I was watching a program with a child that was medicated with 4 different pharmaceutical drugs to originally address his ADHD. And then they added another drug, and when that wasn't, and the child was obese, right? So the child had a lot of sugar in its diet. And I wrote a meme for Sweet Freedom that says, medicating a child for a behavioral issue without removing sugar and addressing nutrition is at best an act of ignorance and at worst an act of abuse. We're kids.
Yeah.
We're just kids in big bodies. And if we eat enough sugar, it impacts us just as destructively.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so Christina, how did you come to find out about Sweet Freedom, and what attracted you to it? What was the reason you thought, I'll try this?
Yeah. Um, a few years ago, I've been really interested in Ayurveda for a long time. And I came across a program with John Immel, Joyful Belly, a few years ago, which I tried, which again, I lost weight on. But he started talking about the Sweet Freedom, the Sweet Freedom Summit.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it was bringing me back to, okay, sugar is the problem, right? Sugar is the problem.
Yes.
So I registered for the summit, and I heard you and the speakers, and just really felt that this was really that thing I needed to address again. The addictive quality of sugar for me in my life, and the other thing was, in the reading and research I'd done, I knew that community is a really big factor in people's success with staying off sugar. And I thought that all the times I'd done it and succeeded, I'd never had community. So the community piece was really important. I come from a very internally a very sort of psychological, psycho-spiritual place. So the Sweet Freedom appealed to me in that it wasn't, it wasn't a boot camp. It wasn't harsh. It was loving and supportive and encouraging, and also packed with information. And your story of freeing yourself from sugar was very powerful, or is very powerful. So, and I was ready. I mean, I think, I'm not typical, I don't think, in that I really felt I had done most of my emotional work. The reasons for eating and overeating and binging, I felt like I had worked through pretty much all that stuff, and I didn't understand why I was continuing to have a difficulty with it. Didn't understand the brain science, which you talk about a lot, to understand why it can still continue to sort of run in your brain and in your life. I've been meditating daily for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I do yoga. I do my psychological work when I need to. So, I just didn't know how to fix this. Everything I knew was not fixing this problem in my life. So I thought, you know what? I just have to try. I just have to try. And there are pieces here that I've never had before. And so let's just try.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me, what were the pieces that you didn't have before, apart from community? Obviously, that you mentioned that one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody who had journeyed and succeeded and come up with a framework that really seemed to work and have success, and but also wasn't rigid, and it wasn't even really. I mean, food is only a part of Sweet Freedom, right? You talk all the time about mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. It's like all those quadrants, if you're only working on one, which is what I'd mostly done in those other programs, you're not gonna get there. And the idea of hyper nourishing, on all those levels, I'd never heard that before. Your understanding of how we're meant to eat as a species. Never heard that before. Made sense to me. Yeah, because the as humans, we evolve any species evolves very slowly. So if we're suddenly doing something differently in the last 100 years that we've never done before, then there's going to be impacts. And to get back to that way of eating, makes perfect sense. And then, you know, the sustainability of the planet, you know, that piece of what's good for the body is good for the planet and vice versa. So all those things were really important and made sense to me. So
Right. Thank you. You're a good student, I have to say. Not just a good teacher, but you know, a good teacher is usually a good student. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I just give you kudos, as you know, many times for the program when you would post your successes and thank me and give attribution to me, I would just like flip it back to you and say, congratulate yourself because you're the one doing the work. I get to be the guide or the teacher, but it doesn't
Hmm.
any difference if people aren't going to do the work, right?
Yeah,
So I want to
yeah.
congratulate you for doing the work. And as you know, Sweet Freedom is not a weight loss program, and I never push. Well, not never, but I play down the weight loss thing
Hmm.
because it's such a mind game, and a lot of people will sell programs based on people losing weight, but very few of them have long-term stats of people keeping off the weight. You know,
Hmm.
and so people kind of have success stories, and then they retreat because they don't report the people who came back and because they gained
Yeah.
60 even though they lost 50, that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
for me, it's a big thing. But saying that, and it is a big thing, for people who like us have been obese and morbidly obese. So you lost how many pounds in how many months?
I lost very quickly in the first 6 months, and I lost over. Well, it was getting close to 50 pounds in the first 6 months, I think, or maybe 40 pounds. Um, Now it's slowing down, but it's over 50 pounds. Like I'm I weigh less now than I did at my lowest point with the gastric band.
Right. And you were talking about your clothes, like the
Yeah.
impact on your clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, last weekend I finally said this is enough with these fat clothes in the closet, and I got rid of about half of them. And this week at work, it was we could wear jeans all week, and honestly, it was just embarrassing to be wearing the jeans that I was wearing. I had safety pins in the waist, you know. I didn't bother pinning the legs because what's the point in that, right? I felt like they were like they weren't even mom jeans. They were just like, you know, country farmer overall big baggy jeans. So I broke down last weekend and I bought a pair of jeans, which are a size 16. They're a little bit tight, but they even have a zipper. I haven't had zippers in jeans for like, I don't know, a decade.
You go, girl.
Been a long time. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, and I mean, the truth is that, I mean, that's an incredible success, you know, and I know that, but the truth is at size 16, I'm still way bigger than is good for me, you know. Fortunately, my blood pressure is better. I've been able to half my medication.
Yeah.
I'm working on lowering medication for some other things, not quite as successful yet, but I'm working on it. It's like a long-term goal.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, it's the first time in a really long time that I'm actually starting to feel like I can move in my body. You know, it's like instead of always thinking, can I do that? Can I get there? How much pain am I going to have at the end of doing that? It's like, oh yeah, I can do that. You know, and I make myself consciously experience the doing of that to go, wow, this is what it's like to move in a smaller body, you
Yeah.
know, and that is a gift, a gift.
Yeah. Sometimes when I come home from the farmer's market and I'm laden with my groceries, I actually have that memory. Oh, that's right. I was actually carrying that on my body at one time,
Yeah,
everywhere. Not
yeah,
just in the car, in
yeah,
the kitchen, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's sobering, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. So, tell me about, did you have any fears about the program going in and yourself?
Yes, and I'm sure you remember me too then.
I do. I do. And so See, my observation of your transformation is not just in the physical. It's like
Yeah.
everywhere. So go for it. I
Yeah.
won't interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was really scared to be trying again at weight loss. Um, the fear of failing was immense. The fear of relapse was immense. Um, I felt very protective of myself, and it took a while just for me to realize that I was actually in a safe place. Um, and I'm sure there's many people that have been through this. It's like you try and you fail, and you try and you fail,
Mm.
and you try and you fail, right?
Yeah.
So after a while, the pain of failing is just not something you want to risk anymore, right?
Yeah.
You just don't want to risk it. So,
Yeah.
so in some ways, I'm not even sure how I found the inner resource to try again. But I just feel it was meant to be. It was meant to be, and I have some really great friends now in the Sweet Freedom community. People that I talk to on the phone, and we support each other. And I just thought I had to do something, and you know. So this next piece, I'm going to say, you're going to have to edit out, but I'm going to say it to you so you know. Um, I have always held the option of suicide open for myself,
Mm-hmm.
because holding the option open was sometimes the only thing that made life bearable. And I still held that option open for me if I failed at Sweet Freedom. And I just feel so much compassion for myself for just trying again. I'm fucking amazing.
You certainly are. And can I tell you that's one of the reasons that I never want to kind of have people chasing the scale. It's not the definition of success, you know? And
Yeah.
and like I've said to you before, is that the weight kind of creeping up after you've had a weight loss is just your body and your life and your soul talking to you. Oh, there's something else to work on. This
Yeah.
is, oh, that needs to be addressed. That needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
For me, I'll tell you, I gained weight in unhealthy relationships. And it took me a long time to figure out, oh, Sherry, you don't work well with controlling men. But I
Yeah.
would gain weight in those relationships. And it was finally, I had probably 2 significant relationships where I realized that's what I realized. It's like, oh, they're controlling. And when they're controlling me, I overeat. Maybe I should look at not dating controlling men.
Yeah.
So, so even
Yeah.
though I'd lost that significant weight, I'd have my weight. I had moments where I would go back and I would gain weight.
Mhm.
And they were just teaching me something. Those weight gains were saying, hey, Sherry, there's something to look at here.
Yeah. That's a
So,
wonderful way to look at it.
well, we have to look at this in a much more compassionate than I'm failing because I'm gaining weight. No, no, no. No, your
Yeah.
body's trying to speak to you, right? It's like
Yeah.
I say addiction is your body's way of telling you you're not listening to your soul, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's why Sweet Freedom is really big on getting you to listen to your soul and to providing your environment. And I have to tell you one thing too. You talked about you've met some great friends. What I do know, and one of the reasons that you're having success in Sweet Freedom on a level that some others may not, is because you're a great friend to other people and you're supporting
Mm.
everyone. You're the first to comment and you Yahoo and share, what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a reason why some people have more success than others, and I'm not talking about weight loss, um,
Mhm.
although that's an indicator, right?
Yeah.
And it's that classic thing that if you do the work, the change and the magic actually happens. So again, this is congratulations to you for it's not just doing the work for yourself, but
Mm.
unselfishly serving others. You then, it comes around to serving yourself again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, so I've got a little series of questions I'm going to ask in a row, and you can choose to answer it and how it works for you. But
Okay.
who, who did you see yourself as before the program? Who do you see yourself as now? And what has changed about your life as a result of doing Sweet Freedom?
Okay. Um, I think the biggest piece is that now I feel that there's possibility in my life again. Um, possibility to regain my health and my energy in a way that I haven't been able to do in a really long time. Um, Possibility to get my art business up and running. Before Sweet Freedom, like, I mean, honestly, I was just like one foot in front of the other, just one foot in front of the other. I have um, a stressful job in that it requires a lot of my mental energy, um, and often, work was difficult.
Yeah.
Um, so I honestly, I felt like I didn't even have enough to keep my life going.
Yeah.
Um, Now I feel like, I'm not nearly where I want to be. Given I'm 61 and I've been doing this for 9, 10 months now, that's like a very small amount of time, in a lifetime. And I think that's, the other piece that I've gotten from Sweet Freedom is that, you know, there's still a lot that I need to learn and practice and figure out and apply and stay on track with, because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to have, the life that I want. Um, a couple of years ago when I was doing an online painting class, and amazing teacher, lots of TED Talks and spiritual stuff. And one of the TED Talks was, people always focus on the life they want to have, follow your passion, the life you want to have, all of that stuff. And this TED Talk, I don't even remember the name of the person. It was, become the person you need to be to have the life you want. And I went, that's what I need to do. If I imagine this life where I have all this energy and, money and all of that stuff, it's like, this life, this body, I don't have the energy for that life, right? I'm not the person who can have that life. So it flipped it around for me, and I went, okay, let's just focus on becoming who I need to be to have that life.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of Sweet Freedom. Like, Sweet Freedom, following the Sweet Freedom journey, my journey with Sweet Freedom is allows me to become more and more who I truly am as a being, and also having a better body to accommodate my being, so that I can move forward in the world to really do what I'm here to do.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. That's so cool.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what would you say to other people who might be considering sweet freedom, but they're doubting, will it actually work for them? What would your advice be?
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes you just have to start. You just have to start. Like, I mean, our mind can find a zillion million reasons why it might not work, or it might work for somebody else and might not work for me, right? This is what the mind does. The mind chatters, the mind finds reasons, the mind justifies, as you say, right? Um, but if you found your way to sweet freedom, I don't think that was by chance. You know, if you if it feels true to you, if it feels resonant to you, if it feels possible to you, then I think you just have to start. You just have to start and not have an expectation of where it will go. Just start and let each step follow, and you'll get to a place you didn't ever expect.
Well, and I see that in you. Like your artwork now. I'm an ardent follower of yours on Instagram. And I even just in the short time I've been following you on Instagram, well, short, you know, the
Yeah.
few months,
Mm-hmm.
I've actually seen a progress, not just in your actual artwork, but how you're marketing yourself, right? You know, and how
Mm-hmm.
you're actually stepping into, I'm an artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
even offering advice to, you know, like people like
Yeah.
myself art wise and support, you know, like you're really
Yeah.
championing others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that, and that's why I really wanted to speak to you and have you share your story, is
Mm-hmm.
because you're the embodiment of what makes Sweet Freedom work, is people doing the work, right? It's like this stuff works when you work it. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things that we said on our Zoom session this week, or I said on the Zoom session this week, when we need it the most is when we hide out. It's like,
Yeah.
and it's so
Yeah.
easy to kind of hide out and not attend, but no matter what was going on in your life, you showed up. So
Yeah.
that's why we celebrate you, you know, and are so grateful to have you in our community. And yeah, hope to not only have you in our community, but somehow find a way, you know, to be working with you in the future. I really, that's just my intuition says that.
Yeah.
So
That
is
would be
there,
amazing.
oh, great.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish to offer in the form of advice, story, or comment that you feel would make this time together that we've speak more complete?
um, I think that, we live in a world where everything is focused on results, in the sense of, you have to accomplish things by a certain point in life, and you have to be successful in this area of life, and you have to be successful in your business, and it's all rules and ideas, and everything is being um, put on top of you. It's like there's very little in our life in this world that actually encourages us to embrace ourselves as we are, and to understand that we're human, and we're flawed, and we struggle, and when we find a place where we can do that, I mean, that is a tremendous gift. you know I have been fortunate in that in my lifetime I have found, you know several places that offered me that, which is where I learned to champion other people, and to celebrate every little win. you know um, and Sweet Freedom is a place where we are embraced as we are in the moment. We're not judged. We're encouraged. We learn to support each other. We learn to come out of the shame. And we have all the time. You give us lifetime access. We have all the time, you know. that we need or we want, to, dip our toes in and, leave them in, or run away and come back and dip them in, or whatever our specific path requires. So there are very few places like that. So, if people have found their way here, then, and even if you've lost trust in a lot of things, like just trust this. Just trust this one thing and just start. Just start. That's all. There's nothing else you have to do. Nobody's telling you anything else you have to do. Just start.
Well, I think that's a perfect way to kind of to wrap up our conversation. And again, so proud of you. So honored to have you still being in the program after this time. So grateful of how you actually show up and support other people. And I just, when Team Sweet are in our meetings, we honor you and people like you who are in the group, and it really helps us, keep going, with it's hard to build a business like this. I'll be really transparent. It's work, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
people like you and stories like you that make us know that we're on the right track and we're willing to work hard and sacrifice to be able to experience this. So thank you so much, Christina, for sharing your story, for being so open and transparent and vulnerable, and staying on the Sweet Freedom train. Yeah, thank you for sharing space.
Yeah. Well, you're very welcome. It's my honor and my pleasure to make my story available so that it can encourage other people, and just a huge heart full of gratitude to you and the Sweet Freedom team for, creating this and, bringing it to the world. And I know that is, probably only part of your mission, but a big part. And, what I can do to support that, I'm more than happy to do.
Awesome.
Mwah. And to Andy too. Mwah.
Couldn't do it without him. And Team Sweet, Allie and Kevin. Yeah.
So if you've liked this video, please press like, subscribe to our channel, and for more information, simply go to sweetfreedom.ca.